There was an interesting post on a retail site. I don't know if you saw this, OJ. I know you keep up to date with the news pretty well, but there was this interesting leak of a price point of $399.9 for the Scorpio.
Yeah, I saw someone link that to me, and I'm like, this isn't the official price. He was trying to say, oh, this is the price. I'm like, no, that's not the official price. You know,
it's probably a placeholder price, but it does bring up the question that I don't think. I just don't see how they could get it out at that price. I do still firmly think it's going to be 500. Michael Pachter has actually come out and said if it's above 400, the thing's dead in the water, which I don't believe. And I've actually sent Pachter plenty of messages on this, which he probably has no idea what's going on when I send the messages.
Message him on Twitter. Sometimes he'll respond back on Twitter. Have you sent him anything on? Oh. Yeah. Message him on Twitter. Sometimes he'll respond back on there.
Oh, cool. Okay, good. So I don't think if it releases above 400, it's dead in the water, but I do think if it releases above 500, it's dead in the water. Now, I don't know if anyone else other than myself is going to buy a Scorpio on this podcast right now. I don't know if you guys will.
I want to hear Evan's take on this. Evan, what is your take on, since you're a PC dude, what's your take on this Scorpio? I really want to hear what you have to say.
I mean, by the time it comes out, especially for people who actually try to follow PC and keep up to date with it, there's most likely going to be a card that's already going to be better for it, more powerful, and at the price a little bit lower, most likely, than what the overall system is, if the price points we're saying are going to be a thing.
Well, the Scorpio seems to be on par with, say, a 1070, for example.
Yeah, and by the time it really lands, we should be able to get those fairly cheap, and then it's just a one purchase upgrade, and I don't lose my library of games. I don't have to change over and do anything else. I can just keep going from there. It's not a big deal. But the system itself, I'm just not interested in it at this point, because with 4K gaming, I know we talked about this at the store occasionally. You are going to need a specific size screen, and I don't really want a massive screen down here to really get the emphasis of 4K. Because if you're playing 4K at 30 inches, you're really not going to feel it.
That's true. Now, you would feel 1440, for example, which I still think is a better resolution for the value and the performance. I think 1440p is a better resolution than 4K right now, because we're still struggling to get 4K with, say, I don't know, a GTX 1080, for example. It's not 60 frames all the time, which is, I think, what they're trying to accomplish here with Scorpio. But the problem that they're running into, and Phil Spencer's already said this, and it was probably not the best idea to say, but maybe he's just trying to head this off when it actually comes out. He doesn't think the Scorpio is going to sell well, which is weird for the head of Xbox to say, but he doesn't think it's going to sell well. And I could have told him that as soon as they announced it, mostly because the PS4 Pro, while it's not as powerful, obviously, we know that, but it does 4K. Now, the way you make your system successful is by attaching to the mainstream. I think everyone can understand that, and I think the Wii pretty much proved that you don't need the most powerful system on the market to win, as long as you attach the mainstream. How many people's grandmothers bought the Wii because you could bowl? So I think in this case, you're going to have a mom that goes in. They have a choice between Scorpio and the PS4 Pro. Scorpio will be 500, I think, at this point. And I do think that the Pro will drop to 350. They both say 4K on the outside. Which one does she buy?
The funny thing is that people, even with the Pro being out, people are still just buying PS4. PS4 still outsells Pro quite a bit. Sony's not even releasing numbers on Pro particularly. So
they lump it into the PS4.
Exactly. So I don't really think people just aren't really. I think it'll be for a few years now. People just aren't going to be ready. They don't need 1080p is fine for a lot of people. It's cheaper. PS4 is what, $299, $250 or $299? You can get it for $250 or $299.
Realistically, if you actually shop, you get it for $250.
Yeah, so that's fine. Just buy a PS4. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, Scorpio was going to be more expensive. I just don't see. It's going to be cool. Don't get me wrong. I think it's going to be cool. Yeah.
What's interesting to note though is if people are freaking out about it releasing at, say, 500 even. The original Xbox One released at 500. We all remember this, right? in 2013 even.
With that Kinect, with that.
Oh gosh, they do not care about the Kinect, and it seriously, it's insane to me because it is the exact same thing that happened to the Kinect on the 360. The exact same thing.
I still don't even know why they decided to even bring it over to the freaking one.
I don't
after
know.
Seeing how much everyone trashed it, ragged on it, how the companies that showed all the cool technology for it that never came to pass. Why? Why would you continue that legacy of pain and anger?
I think they're just blinded by the money that Kinect brought in. You know what I'm saying? because it sold really well on the Xbox 360. Like it sold so well. So I think they're just blinded by that. They had their tunnel vision, kind of like how Nintendo does sometimes with some of their, their things. They just kind of had their tunnel vision on, like, we're going to do it this way because it sold. So, I mean,
yeah, but Nintendo seems to get it worse from fans, which is weird.
But it sold mostly in package formats to people, and a lot of those people traded that stuff back into us and kept the systems. Like we had Kinects just sitting on a desk behind us, and no one wanted that stuff.
You had to like move Kinects to put more Kinects away.
Hey man, I agree. There was the used market of the Kinect. I mean, you could get one for really cheap on the 360. Like if you really wanted a Kinect, you never had to pay full price for it. You could always get it. We were selling
them for $20 at one point.
Yeah, $20.
And the only reason I could think of it, and I think we talked about this, John, was that they were trying to resurrect their old idea of having a device in a room that's reading metadata on the people playing it to try to advertise specific things to them, because that was a patent Microsoft had in for the Kinect specifically. So.
It was one of the scariest things I've ever seen, because this was when they were first coming out with the idea for the Xbox One and the Kinect being almost attached. Because if you remember, at one point it was pitched that you needed it to be attached for it to work.
Right.
It wouldn't work. Yeah. So their idea was that if you watch a movie, for example, they would get the technology to the point where it could count how many people were in the room and then charge you accordingly for renting the movie. So they were seriously trying. This was a thing for like a few
you're
months.
Right. It was a thing that
it was a scary thing, and they were going to get to the point where the Kinect could read your heartbeat and decide when it was best to show you certain ads based on how hyped up you were about something that was going on TV or in the game, for example. Let's say you're on the menu and you can tell how fast your heartbeat's going. Oh, we're going to show them this Doritos, this Doritos ad here.
If this actually went through, Microsoft would have made a killing on advertising revenue.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
If this actually happened, advertisers would have paid so much for this. So I can see why they wanted to, but it's just a horrible concept. But Philip, man, like, what do you think on the whole Scorpio thing? I think we didn't really get your take on it.
Yeah, I'm excited about it. I'm gonna get one. I'm not as hyped up as I was about it when it was first announced. But I have a PS4 Pro. And I gamed on it a lot when I got it, like a month or two after it came out. I also have a 4K TV that I got with the PS4 Pro.
It was a bundle?
No. I like at the same time I bought him.
Okay.
Yeah. So I don't know. Like it's okay, but at the same time, I think that the masses, the majority of people out there, they don't have a 4K TV. Still, like we said earlier, I think the majority of the people are still gaming on 1080p. And for me, even though I do have a 4K TV, I'm looking forward to more of like Scorpio's like just graphical enhancements towards games and the fact that it does run on a 1070 or the equivalent of. So I don't know. I think that for me, I've always leaned more towards the Microsoft or Xbox side when it came to console gaming, because that's where all of my games or all my friends play on Xbox Live or whatever. So I think that as long as it has games to bring with it, it's going to do well. But we don't have any good exclusives from Microsoft coming out, right? Phantom Dust, maybe. I
have that game on the original Xbox right over here.
I mean, I'm going to buy it, but I don't know who else is, Yeah,
so. And there's it's going to come out on the PC. Evan, who does not have an Xbox, can buy every game that you will buy on your Xbox with his PC. So, and here's the thing: he doesn't have to pay for Xbox Live.
Yeah, it's curious to see, what Microsoft is doing. I'm wondering what happened to their, because the Xbox 360 to me was the best. Yes. I liked it the most last generation, or whatever generation that we're in. I'm not sure where we're at this point with Pro and Switch and all this, but 7th generation, I love the Xbox 360. There were so many unique exclusive games ranging from third party to first party. I mean, timed exclusives, just all sorts of stuff. Japanese games, we got stuff like Lost Odyssey, Blue Dragon, Eternal Sonata. There was just a lot of different games that were exclusive or timed. Star Ocean 4 came out first on the Xbox 360. I'm wondering what happened to that. I'm kind of wondering, like, Microsoft from the Xbox 360 to the Xbox One just seemed to just be like, well, we don't care about that stuff anymore. And that's kind of where they lost me. Now, I don't talk about it a lot, but it's something that's kind of irked me just a little bit with the Microsoft brand, because I have all those games on the 360. I think that they're fantastic, and I think that Microsoft did a great job with games. Obviously, their system blew up at times with Red Ring of Death, but outside of that, their games were great. So I'm wondering what their their strategy is.
I think it's more like a customer shift, like a user base shift, kind of like what the big issue was with Nintendo for a while for a lot of people, was that their user base, it was more seen to be for children and everything, and the bulk of the games did reflect that. And I think for some reason they're now reflecting a different user base that they want for the Xbox One for some reason than what really got the 360 up off its feet and had it running and just going crazy. Because I mean, we're not really seeing as many of those big explosive titles, the firework button games of just press a button, watch everything go crazy on your screen type stuff. I don't know what they're doing overall, but I mean, we have talked about them shutting out the exclusive titles, I guess on the last podcast and even in some other videos. It's going to be kind of weird because they definitely have to have a lineup the moment they really come down with a price point for Scorpio to actually matter at all in most people's mind. Like, Philip, you're probably going to not want it if they just go, here's the system, and then they don't tell you anything else. Like, you've got nothing coming.
Yeah, exactly. Because right now, like, there aren't any exclusives coming in the foreseeable future that I would get. Like, I'm a huge Halo fan, but Halo 6 isn't coming out anytime soon. I mean, maybe, yeah. Like, I don't even think we're going to hear about it at E3, right? So
maybe, right?
Consider the fact that Microsoft had good exclusives of 360 and they lost them. BioShock was a 360 exclusive. It was only on Microsoft's side. Dead Rising, same way. Mass Effect is now all over the place, but it was only on Microsoft's console. So they have done nothing but lose or cancel games. Scalebound, a game that I was looking forward to so much, is never going to see the light of day probably.
Oh man, that one hurt.
Yeah,
that one hurt.
even some of the lesser known but still impressively conceptual titles like Pray for the Gods, that's coming out across all the consoles, and it'll be cool to see if it actually touches the Switch, because at the time it was being announced, the Switch wasn't really a thing for it to port to. But as we saw with Battle Chasers Night War, even though the Kickstarter only went through for the main consoles that were out at the time, with the Switch's release, they just did it. They were able to just toss it to the Switch and have it actually work. So it'll be cool to see if that all starts folding over to the Switch as well. And then, I mean, Scorpio still just doesn't have anything rolling for it.
Yeah, it's going to be weird. I just feel like Microsoft's doing the complete opposite. They're trying to give you the best third-party experience you can get, and the other two systems are trying to bring you games you can only get on that system. So it's a weird strategy.
Do you think we'll see any Oculus support with Scorpio?
Yes, that has to be a thing, because they already have their hands in the Oculus basically, and I have to imagine them and Facebook are working right now probably to plug it into Scorpio. That's probably the big reason. One of the big reasons anyway that Scorpio is a thing is because the original Xbox, I cannot see how that could run any type of VR.
It's not because it's not just the textures; it's the frame rate. If the frame rate's too low, it feels horrible.
It's running DDR3 memory for everything. You're not going to run that at a high resolution, and if you run anything like 720p and split that in half, it's not going to be good for what they're trying to push in that system.
I see.
So yeah,
we'll see what happens with that. It's going to be really interesting. I'm just excited because it's another device. It's competition. It's going to be something that's out there on the market. Gives people options, so that's nothing wrong with another option.
All I want for Microsoft are games. That's all I want. They have their beast. Just give it some games to play on it.